Ms. Monica? Any questions? Mr. Briscoe?
So, Mr. Khan's brother is going to be the majority owner, and that means he takes the majority of the responsibility associated with the liquor license? Is that, would
Well,
that be correct?
the manager, which is Mr. Razak,
Okay.
is the person that takes the majority responsibility for
That's
the
not changing.
alcohol sale. Just because he only owns a third of the corporation, he still is the designee by the state to take care of the alcohol sales.
And that's the way it is currently, so that's not changing at all?
He's not changing. He's the manager of record and president of the corporation.
I don't have any more questions.
Mr. Bell, you notice? It's all, it appears as though every department had
No
signed
department
off.
concerns whatsoever.
Thank you.
Just,
Mr. Messeri?
Does this have to go before the Alcoholic
It
Beverage
does.
Commission?
Absolutely.
They
yes.
need
And
our
that's
approval
after
first.
our approval?
Yes,
or-
once you approve it, it'll be submitted to the ABCC. Once it's approved, we'll notify the applicant.
Right. Okay, is it all finished? Thank you very much.
We have a motion? Mr.
Yes,
Combs?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the change of stockholders for the package store wines and malts license for RSS Convenience Inc., DBA Convenience Plus, 7 Main Street, by the removal of stockholder Shafakir Khan.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Close the public hearing?
Thank
you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Open space.
Let's go back to doing voters too.
Thank you.
Is Juliet Walker here? Hello. Just before you start, we need to conduct another public meeting at 7:45. Do
Okay.
you think you're going to need more time?
No, that's fine. I can,
You wanna
I
get
can
out of here?
accommodate
Okay.
your time.
All right, thank you. This is on item 4, the open space plan update.
And, well, I'm gonna talk while I hand out initial, you know, you received a handout in your packet. I'm just gonna hand something else out to you. So I'm Juliet Walker. I'm with Brown Walker Planners. We are a community planning consulting firm. We are working with the town to update your open space and recreation plan. So I'm just here to give you an update. We wanted to get to you in advance of the summer. We're not complete with the update yet, but we just wanted to give you a status report and then give you a sense of what's next in terms of your approvals of the plan. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with an open space plan, so I'm just going to quickly give you an overview of what it is and what our role in it is. An open space and recreation plan is something that allows your community to remain eligible for state grants. So your update was scheduled for update this year. Actually, as long as you get it done this year, you'll be remain eligible for the state grants. Things like park and land grants. I think some of you might be familiar with those terms. Obviously, it's just good to have a current updated plan. It guides your community in terms of decision making related to parks and open space. So both active recreation areas as well as conservation areas, those kinds of things. So we are working with the Open Space Committee, which includes representatives from the Parks Commission, the Planning Commission, the Land Utilization Committee, and the Conservation Commission. And we held one public meeting so far. Our update, and then we also did a community survey. So what I'm passing around to you is just what my comments are, basically the overview of what the open space plan is. But then I also included in that an overview of the community survey. We did that community survey over a period of a month. I think it was April. And got about 170 or so responses. And that's pretty consistent for open space and recreation plans. It's a pretty targeted audience, people who have specific interest in those particular issues. So some of the recommendations that will be coming out of this plan are based on that, as well as the public input from the community meeting that we've held. We will be, our work with the committee is updating the sections of the plan that are out of date. So I don't know if you recognize this plan. You should all have a copy, hopefully, but you will definitely get a copy, an updated copy, once we're complete with our work with your community. We basically update anything that may be out of date in terms of demographics, sort of community setting, growth and development patterns. There are 11 required sections of an open space and recreation plan, so it can be kind of a big document, but we focus on the areas that need updating every 5 years. So a lot of that stays the same for the most part. We also will do update the inventory of open spaces, so we look at town-held land, state-held land, and private-held land that has some kind of interest in terms of natural resource protection or recreational value for the community. And then we also, another part of the update is looking at taking stock of what are your community needs. So again, that's informed by the public process, by the survey, as well as our own discussions and interviews of people who regularly use some of your open space and recreation areas, some of your leagues, other groups that are involved in programming activities, to get a sense of how are things, you know, what's missing, what are there some things that maybe could be done better. I'll tell you frankly, we do a lot of open space and recreation plans. Your community's in pretty good shape in terms of your recreation programs. You can always, I'll tell you, you can always use more field space, and we're definitely finding that that's something that people are saying they need. But in terms of your parks management and so forth, we think you guys are doing pretty well. But that's not to say we won't include some recommendations for improvement, but overall, we're getting a sense of a pretty well-run program in general. So let me just scan ahead so that I don't. The other part of the update will be identifying lands of interest. So if there are any properties that have potential, either publicly held or privately held for serving some sort of community need, those will be identified in the plan. And we'll work with the Land Utilization Committee as well as discussions with other community groups. I don't think there'll be any surprises in terms of the lands that we identify in this. There are probably areas that you're already interested in protecting or improving. Let's see. So our process, as I said, we've done a public meeting. We did a community survey. We are in the process of talking to different stakeholder groups. And then we're also presenting to different boards and committees just to give you all a sense of where we are. And then we will submit a draft to the state probably in July. And then we'll be looking to get letters of support from your board as well as other committees once we get sort of the preliminary approval from the state. I included in that packet some of the highlights of the survey as well as what we've heard from the stakeholders. Because we are on a time crunch, I don't want to dwell on that too much, but that's in your handout. So what you had received prior to this was the action plan, and I think this is probably the crux of our update, what's most important, because it lays the sort of roadmap or groundwork for what your community is going to be doing over the next 5 to 10 years. So if you had a chance to review it in advance, you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now, but I just wanted to alert you that this is the draft action plan. It follows, it lays out actions. It also, I think your plan includes 2 additional columns, which identifies responsible parties as well as a time frame. And that's what we're going to be working on over the next month or so to finalize for the draft that we submit to the state. So that's the end of my presentation.
Sure.
Juliet, I just have a question on the survey.
Yes.
How did that get out to residents, and how many people responded?
Yeah, it was an online survey to facilitate. The best way to do a survey is to send it out to every resident, but that's just not always feasible, particularly for budgets and so forth. So basically, this was an online survey. We also made available hard copies in the Parks Department as well as in the Community Planning Commission. So notices were sent out to the paper. But basically it was made available online through SurveyMonkey, and notices were sent via email to different groups to sort of spread it by word of mouth, which we find to be one of the more effective ways to get the word out. We also announced it at the public meeting that was held, so people were encouraged to go and fill it out after that. I think, I don't have it in front of me because I think I gave out all my copies. It was about 180 or 170 responses. which I believe represents about 3% of households, if that's correct, which is fairly, again, it depends on your community, but open space and recreation doesn't tend to drive a lot of people. It's not a burning issue for the majority of people unless there's a hot sort of topic that people are really interested in. So we feel it's a pretty fair response. I think you also want to look at the demographic of who responded. We got a fair representation of the community. It's not 100% reflective of all of your demographic, so we made note of that in the summary in terms of, you know, you may not have had a 100% representation of your elderly population. You probably could have done better maybe in a lower income bracket. So what we try to do in our outreach is, for example, talk to the Council of Aging or work with the Disabilities Commission to get some input from them directly. So we try to balance these surveys with additional input where needed.
During your study, do you look at what grants that the town would actually, that you would recommend for the town to take advantage of that we haven't taken advantage of in the past?
Yes. So in this action plan, I guess I only mentioned 2 additional columns. There will be a 3rd column where we identify potential funding sources as well. Things that we would identify are things like the park and land grants, but then there might also be other ones that are maybe available on a limited basis or have, you know, maybe they're even at the federal level or something, and we try to recommend those. It's not a complete list, but we try to do as much as we can in terms of helping facilitate the funding part of it too.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments from Ms. Walker? Thank you very much for the
All right,
reference.
you're welcome. Thanks for your time. And I'm going to leave my cards here, so if you have any direct questions or things you want more information on, feel free to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right on time, Sue. Nice job. Item 6, Great American Tavern, request for extending hours on patio. Bless you.
Hello.
Please, hello. Can you
Hi,
please identify yourself by
Yeah,
name and your
I'm
address?
Brian Moran, 33 James Way in Hudson, and this is,
12 Alston Road, North Reading.
I know you're the new manager, and what's your
I'm
affiliation?
one of the owners. There's a couple of, excuse me, I have a little laryngitis. So we're here to, right now our hours, the patio closes at 6. We've been here a couple times talking about this, and we had some restrictions put on it. And then when the ABC came down, they said that we couldn't designate that area that was used for smoking because it's a licensed area for alcohol, so that was nixed. So now we can't use it after 6, so it's kind of hindering, you know, our ability. So what we're asking is to have it open like any other restaurant would have it open. The patio's open the duration of the restaurant. That's basically what we're asking.
I'm not sure if that's how it works in terms of patios, if they're open same hours that the restaurant's open. Is that?
It is unless the board establishes a restriction on it.
Okay.
Yes.
It's just tough at, you know, at dinner time, it's, you know, at least the dusk is, you know, sitting outside, it's nice being able to
Understood.
sit outside too.
There wasn't a public notice that I needed to read.
No,
But
but there-
notification was sent to the
Correct.
abutters.
Notification was sent to the abutters, and we also published a notice in the transcript.
Correct.
Yes.
Any questions, board members?
I'd just like to hear, we do have some abutters.
Right.
I'd like to hear their comments first before they comment and have some input. So we might want to open it up to them, Mr. Chairman. Then we can deliberate.
Did you have something, Mr. Prisco?
I would like to hear from the abutters. I was gonna say this, just, I'd like to hear from them first, and then I would just like to kind of recap how we got here. I think it's important that we have, for Joe's knowledge.
Fair enough. If
Yeah.
there are abutters, if I could just ask you.
Sure.
To step aside for a moment, if there's any abutters, if I could just ask you to come up, state your name and address. I just like, we get a full agenda. I'm not going to say you can't speak, but if you can limit your comments to 1 to 2 minutes, that'd be appreciated. I believe it's Mr. Rourke.
My name's Walter O'Rourke. I live at 4 Plough Avenue, which is directly behind the restaurant. I've lived there for over 30 years, and before I lived there, I lived in the building right beside the restaurant, 299 Main Street, in an apartment there. I've been there when there was the 303 Lounge, Restaurant Daniela, all through the years. And I've never had such a noise problem as I have now. the problem was with lighting at first. That is